The sound of static flickered through the air, sharp and broken like the heartbeat of a distant storm. A military radio crackled, spitting fragments of voices into the dimly lit tent. Dust hung thick, swirling beneath the harsh white glare of floodlights that painted long shadows across the desert outpost. The hum of generators pulsed like a second heartbeat against the silence of the night. Canvas walls trembled with each gust of wind. Inside, soldiers moved briskly, their boots pounding against the dirt, faces weary, eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. Maps were pinned to boards, lines drawn and redrawn, coffee cooling on metal desks. It was the kind of night where tension wrapped itself around every breath, where every second stretched into hours. Amid the flurry of movement, one figure stood out not because she demanded attention, but because she avoided it. A woman knelt near a battered Combs rack, her sleeves rolled past her elbows, dark grease streaking her forearms. Small precision tools were laid out beside her like instruments in an operating room. Her movements were steady, careful, deliberate. The soft glow of the monitor reflected in her eyes as she reconnected circuits and adjusted dials. She worked in silence, unbothered by the chaos surrounding her. To the others, she was just a technician, another quiet specialist, keeping the radios alive in a war zone that had long forgotten peace. Her name was Sarah Donovan. To most of the camp, she was simply Donovan, efficient, quiet, invisible. She spoke little, kept to herself, and never joined in the laughter or the banter that filled rare moments of calm. She worked while others rested, fixed what others broke, and left no trace of her presence except for the hum of working equipment. But there was something in the way she carried herself, something sharp beneath the quiet. A discipline that came from more than just training. It was in her posture, in the calm steadiness of her hands, in the eyes that had seen more than she ever admitted. Once, she had been known by another name, Falcon. Captain Sarah Donovan of the United States Navy, one of the finest fighter pilots to ever take to the skies. Her legend had once filled briefing rooms and flight decks. She had led squadrons through firestorms, flown rescue missions into hopeless chaos, and carried entire teams home from the jaws of death. Her aircraft had been an extension of her soul, her courage unmatched. And then one day, she vanished from the air. No farewell, no scandal, no report, just silence. Now she was here, among the dust and static, fixing radios instead of flying jets. She had buried Falcon long ago. That night, the tension inside the command tent reached a breaking point. A SEAL team was deep behind enemy lines, and the radio link had gone dead. The men in the tent shouted, orders pounded on tables, scrambled to re-establish contact. The sergeant in charge slammed his hand down, his voice sharp with frustration. "Where the hell's our comms tech? We're blind out there." The room buzzed with panic. Sarah rose quietly from her corner, picked up her toolkit, and walked forward. No one noticed her at first. Then one by one, the voices fell silent as she knelt by the rack. Without a word, she opened the panel, wires glinting under the light. Her hands moved with unhurried precision, tracing circuits, checking frequencies, tightening loose cables. Sparks flickered briefly, the radio hissed, lights blinked erratically, and then,
Clarity.
"Team Bravo in position," came a crisp, clear voice over the speaker. "Awaiting orders?" The room exhaled as one. Shoulders dropped, curses turned into sighs of relief. Sarah leaned back, wiped sweat from her brow, and allowed herself a small breath of satisfaction. She gathered her tools quietly, ready to fade back into the background. But then a single word stopped her. "Ma'am." The tone was unmistakable, respectful, formal, sharp enough to cut through the noise. Heads turned. A Navy SEAL lieutenant stood near the table, his posture rigid, his gaze locked on her. The others stared in confusion. A comms tech didn't get called ma'am by a SEAL lieutenant. Sarah froze. Her back stiffened as she turned slowly to face him. Their eyes met, and in that instant, something unspoken passed between them. Recognition. Disbelief. Memory. He lifted his hand and saluted, perfectly crisp. The tent went silent. The sergeant blinked, his confusion obvious. "Captain Donovan," the lieutenant said quietly. His voice trembled, not from fear, from something deeper, reverence. A ripple ran through the tent. The sergeant who had barked at her earlier stared wide. Captain, the quiet woman in grease-stained fatigues? Sarah's throat tightened. The title felt foreign now, heavy with ghosts she had tried to bury. You don't remember me? The lieutenant continued. But I remember you. Operation Iron Vortex. The skies were burning that night. SAMs everywhere. We thought we were done. Then you came flying and cutting through that storm like it was nothing. You saved us, ma'am. You saved my team. The soldiers around them whispered in disbelief. Sarah lowered her gaze briefly. Iron Vortex, she remembered. The sound of missile locks, the flash of explosions across black skies. Her hands gripping the controls as alarms screamed in her ears. She had defied orders that night, dove into the chaos to protect the men trapped below. It had been the night that defined her and the night that broke her. That was a long time ago, she said softly. Not for us, the lieutenant replied. We never forgot. His voice steadied. And seeing you here working like none of it ever happened? With respect, ma'am, you were never just a Comstech. You were the reason many of us made it home. Silence hung heavy. Sarah stood still, her heart pounding as the past clawed its way back. The roar of engines, the screams over radio, the flash of fire against the night. She had left the skies because she couldn't carry that weight anymore, the faces of those she couldn't save. The order she had disobeyed, the cost of being Falcon. She had traded the sky for silence. But in that moment, surrounded by soldiers who finally knew who she was, she felt something stir inside. Her spark, she thought, had died. She had never stopped being Captain Donovan. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The soldiers treated her differently, not with pity or distance, but with respect. They sought her advice, asked about her missions, wanted to know what it felt like to dance with death in the sky. At first she deflected. Then, slowly, she began to share. She spoke of long nights above enemy lines, of escorting bombers through storms of tracer fire, of moments when every decision carried lives in its balance. She told them about courage and fear and the loneliness of command. And she told them why she left the guilt, the fatigue, the loss that no medal could erase. But through it all, they saw not the legend she had been, but the strength she still carried. A woman who served, not for glory, but for duty, who kept lifelines open, who made sure no soldier fought in silence. Weeks later, after a brutal mission, the SEAL team returned, bloodied, exhausted, but alive. The radios had held steady the entire time. The lieutenant found Sarah alone in the tent, recalibrating frequencies for the next operation. He approached quietly, holding something in his hand, a tattered SEAL patch, burned and frayed. He placed it in her palm. For when you forget who you are, he said. Sarah looked down at the patch, her eyes shimmering. For the first time in years, a real smile crossed her face, not the polite kind, but the kind born from pride and healing. The lights flickered softly as the camera lingered on her silhouette, because not all heroes walk in parades or wear medals on their chest. Some stand in the shadows, keeping the lifelines alive, fighting silent wars with quiet strength. And sometimes, the ones who fix the radios are the same ones who once ruled the skies. If this story touched your heart, like, comment, and subscribe, because the quietest stories often carry the loudest echoes of courage.